PFT Media.
What's up, my dudes? It's Billy D, and welcome to Mortem.
Shut up and sit down.
Today on Mortem, we're going to be talking about 5 of my favorite films. Let's start from the bottom, shall we? At number 100, with a bullet, is the 1988 classic, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. One word basically sums up this movie. It's ingenious. It was attempting something that had only been done in small bits in the 60s and 70s, in movies like Mary Poppins, Bedknobs and Broomsticks, where animated characters would interact with live action characters in the same screen space. Except Who Framed Roger Rabbit blew that up to the feature-length scale. They wanted always to have toons interacting with live action characters. In order to achieve this effect, the actors were rehearsing with mannequins that were the same shape as Roger and the Weasels and Jessica and some of the other toons. The post-production on this film lasted 14 months. Roger Rabbit featured tons of characters from across different animated universes interacting for the first time. It was a lot like having like a Marvel versus DC battle. You had Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse sharing the screen with Elmer Fudd and Bugs Bunny. You had Daffy Duck and Donald Duck and playing dueling pianos in a bar. Funny thing about that is they actually had to be featured as equally talented pianists. One could not be better than the other for legal reasons in order for them to appear at the same time on camera. So this is a precursor of sorts to the sweetheart deal that Sony and Marvel actually recently struck to share Spider-Man across the two universes. Maybe Roger Rabbit is semi-responsible for this idea of mashup culture that we have today. Who Framed Roger Rabbit probably has my favorite Bob Hoskins role of all time, and my second favorite Christopher Lloyd role. Judge Doom is probably one of the most terrifying antagonists to grace the screen in the 80s. He's really something to behold. It's still a thrilling film. It still grabs you. You care about even all of these animated characters. You don't want to see anything happen to Toontown. And that sounds silly to say as an adult, but Roger Rabbit actually brings you there. Roger Rabbit introduced me to noir, it introduced me to buddy cop films, it introduced me to interspecies sex as a concept. Number 99. There's a name that's gonna pop up a lot on this list. It's one of my favorite directors, probably my favorite director of all time. Now at this time, it was 1989, I was super into wrestling, and one of my favorite wrestlers was Rowdy Roddy Piper. And on one day when I was young and with very little supervision, I got my hands on a copy of They Live on VHS. And this movie kind of changed my life. No, They Live definitely changed my life. It went way over my head. Really the only things I kind of understood were that these two guys weren't exactly buddies, but they were kind of all each other had, other than some magic sunglasses. They Live is kind of a hard sell on paper. It stars a professional wrestler, Keith David, a bunch of B-movie actors. They're all John Carpenter regulars. It has kind of a weird premise, that all of our thoughts and actions are being manipulated through subliminal messages in all of our advertising and television signal. And the only ones that can see it are Rowdy Roddy Piper and Keith David because they have a pair of magic sunglasses. What I'm trying to say is, if They Live is not for you, then you're one of them. Number 98. At number 98, we have Charlie Kaufman's directorial debut, Synecdoche, New York. Now this isn't a movie I could watch all the time, maybe once every 2 years. My experience with it has grown the more I've seen it, and the more I've seen it, the more I really enjoy the scope of it. And it's a very kind of small film about huge things. Jennifer Jason Leigh, Michelle Williams, Samantha Morton, Catherine Keener, Tom Noonan, and one of my favorite performances by the late great Philip Seymour Hoffman. It's about examining your life, and the main character in this film, he's a playwright who gets a grant. And with this money, he puts together a giant interactive theater experience where he's the center of it. And he builds a scale 1-to-1 model of New York City in order to properly explore his life and his place in the world. This film is a distillation of a lifetime of neuroses and fear of death and fear of failure, all put into one magnificent little package. It's trying to form a new vocabulary for the modern existential dread that we all feel. Synecdoche used to be on streaming, and I don't know where you can see it today, but I highly recommend seeking it out, especially if you're just having one of those lives. Number 97. I've already mentioned John Carpenter, and I'm going to mention him again. I mentioned John Carpenter because he's a big reason for a form of music we have today, known as synthwave. His minimalist electronic scores for his early films really paved the way for a modern era of an 80s soaked, neon-drenched form of dance music. I mention it because my 97th film in this series is Drive. Nicholas Winding Refn's slickest film. He has other films that are better. I personally like Valhalla Rising a lot more. But Drive is just so f***ing cool. It features an almost mute performance by Ryan Gosling. It's got a great, crazy Oscar Isaac role. It's just such a weird movie. It reminds me of like a Walter Hill movie or some other, or Sam Peckinpah movie. You know, it's got a very specific view of the world, and I'll admit, it's mostly style over substance. It's got a cool thumping soundtrack. It's got awesome cinematography. Like, LA has never looked cooler, except maybe when Michael Mann was shooting it. You have to buy 100% that he's this preternaturally gifted getaway driver. And much like Refn's other films, it's shockingly violent in places. So keep that in mind. This is an art house film, not an action movie. So get lost in the crazy 80s inspired Euro disco and 70s action of Drive. It's just super rad. Number 96. This is where I might lose some of you. I've chosen Terrence Malick's Tree of Life. This movie, much like Synecdoche, New York, is a meditation on life, love, death, what does it all mean? But instead of focusing that lens inward, like Charlie Kaufman's film, Terrence Malick is more concerned with our place in the greater universe. And much like Drive, this film made people angry when it came out. They were sold a family drama starring Brad Pitt, Sean Penn, and Jessica Chastain, but I'm pretty sure a dinosaur has more screen time than Brad Pitt and Sean Penn combined. A dinosaur. There's a dinosaur in this movie. There's many dinosaurs in this movie. There's a 35-minute sequence in this film that catalogs all time, from the Big Bang to when our main character is living and ultimately dying. Spoiler alert, humans die. One of the things that's amazing about this extended sequence in the middle of the film is that they used little to no CGI in order to achieve these effects, showing these beautiful gas vistas out in the cosmos, using chemical paintings and macro photography. It unlocked my brain and took me to places I hadn't been since I was in academics. I had to think for a long time about this movie afterwards. It really exercised my brain. Well, I hope you enjoyed the postmortem. That's all I got for today. Remember, like, comment, and subscribe. PFT Media and the postmortem could definitely use your interaction. Mighty fine coffee.